Select. Select.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Select podcast. My name is Mr. David. Today we have a very special guest in with us. We have Michael Doyle, who is the head teacher at Buckingham Prep, which is one of our lovely schools where we offer our after school clubs. Michael, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
So tell me a bit about you, Michael. How did you get into the world of education?
So education, it was never something I wanted to do. I actually, growing up, really had my eyes set on being a lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah, and I did a week's work at a court, and I really didn't like it. My sixth form lead at the time sort of said to me, let's fill your time with something else, and just guided me towards working with some children to keep me busy. And it went out really well, and I sort of never really looked back. So it was kind of like a really nice moment there where somebody said, just give it a go. And it all worked out really nice for me. And then I somehow ended up going to uni, doing my teaching degree, working at Buckingham Prep, and then becoming the head teacher. So it's strange, but nice. I really love it.
Wow, that's amazing. I think you kind of fall into it, don't you? It's like, I mean, even at Select, I wanted to do performance and then realised actually it's not kind of for me. I want to facilitate young people and get them to do it instead.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I never sort of looked at education as the career that I wanted to go into when I was about 13, 14, 15. But no, I don't think anybody would. And then suddenly when I was working with people and seeing sort of how beneficial it was and how much time you were given and the benefits that came back from it, I think I just started off helping a group of year 6 children with maths. Because I was really good at maths.
There you go.
And then suddenly having that sort of moments the whole time of people realising and discovering that they can do everything that they thought they couldn't.
Yeah.
It all just rolled on really nicely for me.
I love that. I really love that. Tell me a bit more about Buckingham Prep then. When did you start working at Buckingham Prep? And did you go in straight for the head teacher role? Or did you work?
No. So I started working at Buckingham Prep. I think it was around about January 2017. It was about 9 years ago.
Wow.
And I sort of went for my interview. It was a head of a lower school role, which was sort of my background was early years in Key Stage 1. Got the job, stayed there, for a really long time, and just slowly sort of worked my way through various jobs. I've been the head of lower school, I've been the deputy head pastoral, and then the head teacher at the time, she was leaving, and it was that moment of, do I want somebody else to come and take my school? Because it felt really like my school.
Yeah.
Or do I just throw my hat in the ring and hope for the best? And having the passion for the children who were there in the building and all the stuff, I think worked in my favour. So I've been running the school now for 4 years.
Wow.
And it's been a really busy 4 years. It doesn't feel like 4 years. It feels like it's gone so quick.
Yeah, it happens in seconds, doesn't it?
Yeah, but no, I love it. I really, really enjoy it.
So today I wanted to talk a bit about the difference between academic subjects and creative subjects. I know that when I was at school, I was lucky enough to be able to do those subjects and do drama and singing and all that kind of stuff. But I know that now that's not necessarily the case. I read somewhere earlier that 83% of schools in the UK don't allow for a dance GCSE. And I think that's just crazy to me because it's so important, like especially being creative and well, I mean, I'm working at a performing arts school, so you can see how much I like it. Often I think in that respect, sometimes creative subjects are viewed as lesser or not as important as academic subjects. And I think that parents also pass on that kind of generational ideology. What would you say if a parent was worried that like doing more creative things or doing more arts subjects would distract from academic success? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, I suppose that is a thought. I'm really lucky in my school to have parents who really want the best for the boys. It is a boys' school, so when I talk about boys, that's sort of just a reminder. Parents who really want the most for their boys in all areas, and based on your sort of parental view, there are wavering decisions about what you want to make and what time and effort you want to put into, but also depending on the children as well, it depends on what is it that they want, what they're going to enjoy. I very rarely have to have lots of discussion, but when I do, it is something that comes across sort of quite clearly. So something we talk about a lot at Buckingham Prep is about confidence. So we talk about confidence, we talk about the whole child. We know, being in Northwest London, being in a grammar school area, there is the real academic push. There's a real push for boys to go to selective independent schools as well, who have a whole range of tests which completely differ to what you'd expect just in English and maths. So it's about finding that balance. You know, what can we do to make sure the boys get their next steps for what their parents want, but how else can we include other areas in there? One of the major things we discuss with parents is, it's great, you know, English and maths across the board. I mean, any sort of discussion with you need to go on sort of BBC Politics and type in education, you'll see that's the key point that MPs often talk about, is English, maths, science, computing. But what we have to sort of explain to our parents is the confidence behind that. And, you know, if there's an area that your son's doing really well in, let's say it's English, at some point there's going to be, let's say, a presentation he's going to have to do. There's going to have to be some understanding behind the concept of character feeling, some understanding behind why different characters have made different decisions. If you're looking at sort of fiction work, why has the language been used in a way to to portray or to try and convince you something, you know, if you read a news article. And that's a lot of the time where I feel the performing arts feed in, because words are just there, and, you know, the children need to understand when they read them the intonation behind them, need to understand the body language that would be used. My year sixes do a really lovely unit all about Britain during World War One and World War Two, and there's a lot of intense feeling behind some of the speeches they listen to and some of that context. And if they're just written down, it's really hard to figure that out. Whereas if the children have the chance to explore that in a way that's sort of more holistic, be able to explore it with their bodies, with the changes of their voice, being able to explore it through sort of poetry and music, they kind of understand the feeling about why people said certain things or why people would have felt a certain way. Yeah,
it's interesting you mentioned that, actually, because at university we had to do like a collaboration program where we'd all get put into groups, and then one person would say, this is a great idea for a musical, and we had to kind of devise it all together. And one of the pieces that we did was a musical based on letters during World War II. And so it was really interesting having to almost transfer because we did it based on letters, so the actual written material, transferring that into actual, you know, poetry, like you say, songs, speech, scenes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's super important, because I feel like it allows like a completely new world.
I mean, it's another skill set on top of it. So we did, I think my year fives, they were watching some videos about Martin Luther King. I think we're doing some work around people who changed the world. And I was saying to the boys, you need to pick something that you think would be a good idea to change the world. And I want you to write a speech about it, with the very clear view to them that I wasn't marking any grammar, I wasn't marking any punctuation. I said, but, you know, next week at the end of the lesson, we're going to read those out, and I'll give you some feedback on how you presented and how much you were able to convince me. And there was a range of things. You know, some of the boys saying, no, I can change the world by having absolutely no homework. That's always a very popular choice. Some of them who sort of say, you know, we want to be able to walk to school every day. Some who were saying we don't want books anymore, we want tech. There was a real range of things. But what was really interesting was some of the children who were a lot more sort of wary when it comes to writing, because they knew there was no stakes there with what they were going to write. It was all about how they're going to present it. They did so well. And that's because when you look at those children and the background they'd had, lots of them had performing backgrounds. A lot of them had had the chance to speak at festivals, had the chance to speak in front of people. They may not have had the language that they wanted to use that some of the other children may have had, but they were able to convince you in the way they used their body, the way they changed their voice. It was really fascinating to watch. Sadly, I didn't implement many of the things that they wanted me to do. But, you know, I can save that for next year. That's absolutely fine.
Definitely. That actually links perfectly into my next question, which was, have you seen any cases where creativity allows children to unlock confidence in the academic subjects, like you say?
Yeah, there's a whole range of things. We're quite lucky to have, I've worked, you know, over my entire time in schools with some really fantastic teachers. And, you know, the beauty of teaching is if something isn't working, you've got to find another way.
That's it.
You know, if you need the children to know their times tables. That's a really basic one.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, they can't just sit and stare at a poster. You can do it visually, you can do it orally. There's all different ways. And I had a wonderful teacher a few years back, and she devised a rap for the boys, and I think it was the sevens. The sevens are notoriously hard.
Yeah.
And she did this amazing rap with them where they were able to go home. She filmed it for them, and they revised that, you know, over the week, and they all came back the next week. And you know, we could ask them the sort of different times tables just sort of off the cuff, and you can see some of them, it had already sunk in, they knew what they were. Some of them would stop. You could see them running through the sort of rap and the performance. Yeah, I can't remember the rap, so I can't perform it for you.
I was waiting for the performance.
Sadly not today. But that really worked for those children, and it was fantastic. And then as we have some children who, especially nowadays, really struggle with sort of anxiety and emotional needs, and you see when they join you, there is that element of how are we going to help you with your confidence, and how are we going to help you in this way. And I'm quite lucky to have worked with Select, and we've had sort of dance classes, we've had musical theatre classes. Lauren has come in before, and she's done entire sort of dance days for the entire school. And some of those boys who, in the classroom, when they think everyone's looking at them, would be a bit more shy. When it comes to being in a room where everyone's moving around, you know, doing things that they feel they can't always do at a desk, they really come into their own, and then that slowly permeates through everything else. So it's fantastic to see.
That's it. It's like that vulnerability, isn't it? It's like when they get into that space where they no longer feel vulnerable, of like, because so if you're not good at something, you don't really want to do it again, right? Yeah. But then when you're learning these skills and you're developing, especially in school, once you start to feel more confident about it, then you want to do it more, and you want to explore different avenues of that and that kind of thing. I remember when I was at school, I wasn't very good academically at all. Luckily, I had amazing parents and family who were really supportive of that environment, but I know not everyone's in a similar situation, and I was always just there thinking, I can't do this, I'm not good at this, I don't know what I'm doing, and even the language that I was using to myself was just really bad. But then put me in a dance class or put me in a thing, and my confidence is off the charts. Like, I feel really great about myself. I love, doing that. And I think I noticed when I started feeling more confident from doing dance and doing performance, then when I sat down in a classroom, for example, or working together with people in a team, I was then like, okay, actually, I can use those transferable skills. I can take that confidence when I'm doing, I don't know, a dance piece or whatever, and then apply it to what I'm doing now.
And it's a skill that you have to learn through just constant practice. I feel. And we often say to the boys, there's lots of subjects where something's right or wrong. We can ask you a geography question about erosion. There is a right or wrong answer. There might be a different way of explaining it, but there's always a definitive, this is where we need to get to. I often find it with things like the arts, because the boys aren't constrained by, is this right or wrong? It's an interpretive thing. It's a growth element. There is some grey area about, how do you feel this person would feel, or how do you feel someone would say that line? Year sixes are doing a production of Joseph.
What a great musical.
And I've had a week of cover. So I've been helping them prepare and organise for that. And a lot of the discussions we're having are, how are you going to react? So if somebody's talking and you're not just standing there, what would your character be feeling? What would they be doing? And there isn't a right or wrong answer. There are some that maybe I'd guide them away from. But it's very much giving them that openness to discover that and try that on their own. And I think that helps from this fear of failure, which they may have had in other academic subjects. So then they transfer the skill of, it's okay to try into the science, end of unit test, into, their 11 plus VR paper. It does come across, and I think that it works really nicely for them.
I write 1 instead of 2, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I can learn for next time.
Yeah, as long as you write something, we'll fix it. That's the plan.
I want to move on now just a bit to talk about boys in performing arts. Obviously, you work at Buckingham Prep, which is a boys' school. As a man myself, I feel like when I was younger, the performing arts industry felt really strange and like unknown. I felt like I didn't know until I was doing it, and I loved it. But when I first went into it, it was really unknown because it was a lot of the time quite female-led. And I think that nowadays, still, that boys tend to see performing arts as not cool or not important. I remember my mum took me to a ballet class, and this was when I was really young. And I went in and I was the only boy there. And that really, really affected my decision to not carry on and do it. And I think that it's really important to show that it is something that boys can do. It is an important thing for all children to be able to explore, to be creative. Did you like performing as a child?
I always have been a bit performery. But I didn't do a lot of it as a child, if I'm going to be honest. I did like things at school. And I was from a really large family.
Yeah.
So sort of growing up, my mum's time was split between 4 of us and whoever else was around at the weekend. So there wasn't always the opportunity to do that. But it was something I always would have liked to have done. As an adult, I did circle back. So I remember thinking at one point when I was teaching, I wanted to do something extra just for me.
Yeah.
So I joined a few sort of dance classes. I went to a few sort of amateur dramatics companies as well. So I've done a few different things as an adult, but it is similar to you. It was very much walking into a room and being sort of the only man, maybe one of 2.
Yeah.
And if there was another guy there, you'd be like, oh right,
That's great.
there is company.
Yeah.
And there is that sort of element of, is this the place for me? And I always sort of came from it as, I'm really comfortable being here. Is everyone else comfortable with me being here? And actually they always are.
Yeah.
But you have that internal thought and that pressure. And so to bring it back to school, being in a boys' school, boys don't have that. And sort of I'm always growing up, I went to co-educational settings, and then working in a single sex environment, I've always been very keen on saying, actually there's pros and cons and everything. But for me, when we talk about gender stereotypes, specifically in a boys' school, they haven't got any comparison. So when I first joined, I had this whole thought process in my mind of, I'll be going to quite a hyper masculine environment.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of person, but let's see how it gets on. But it was never like that. The boys here, they've come so young. Most of our boys join us when they're 2.
Very young.
I know. So join us when they're 2, and then they're used to sort of doing everything. They used to come into the sort of Lambda classes. We have Lambda. They used to go into musical classes. They used to doing dance and gymnastics and things in PE, things that maybe they would have shied away from if other people were around, sort of with a more of a judging tone. But because we don't ever have that, the boys do amazingly well, and they don't have that barrier. So that works really nicely for them. We have children who go off and they're in dance classes outside of school, which is quite nice. I always like when things happen outside of school as well, because it means that you've taken your own time. Lots of boys who perform in like traditional dances based on sort of their culture and their background, and then they do come into school and they share that. We have assemblies, we have sort of different performances. And it's always done with a really celebratory attitude. Everyone's really excited for them to do that. Everyone's really excited for the boys to come and sing their songs. And there's always, we do an expressive arts week every year.
Okay.
And every day there is something else. So on this week, I think Monday was poetry, Tuesday was singing, Wednesday was musical instruments, Thursday was dance.
Wow.
And then Friday it's sort of a more art showcase.
Yeah.
And it's always full. Every day the assembly lasts for about an hour, because there are so many of the boys who want to do it, because they're in this environment where their creativity and their passion isn't secondary. It's part of who they are, and it's part of something to share, and the confidence levels that come with that are great. And they're some wonderful performances. They sing so well. and I often sit back and think to myself, I wish maybe when I was 9 or 10 I had the guts to do that. And I didn't, and I probably wouldn't sing in front of a big group of people now either. But just to sort of stand there sort of as an educationalist and just look at something that you've helped create space for is so rewarding, and something that working with Select as well has been great to do, because they know that I think our dance classes are on a Friday afternoon. They know that on Friday afternoon someone's going to, I think it's Miss Sophie at the moment, so she comes, the boys are all excited to see her, and they've got that space, and they always try and pop down towards the end just to see where we're at, and it's always happy, smiley children who are really excited to do what they do without any fear of just because I'm a boy I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, definitely. I often notice when I go into schools, a lot of the time I'll go in and then I'll say, okay, I'm your ballet teacher. and you get that thing of what, like why are you here to teach me ballet? And it's like these kids who have already, even as young as 4 or 5, have this kind of gender stereotype in their head, and I'm like, whoa, okay, where's this coming from? How have they got to that place? But I had it even with piercings. Like I had it, they come in, they tell you, oh, that's for girls. And I said, no, it's not. It's for anybody that wants to do dancing or to do ballet or to do that. And then they turn around and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, and then they carry on. It's like when you see that moment of learning, it's like, whoa, okay.
It's just having sort of someone bring it to their attention. And the one thing I like to do is during assembly, especially when we're talking about gender stereotypes, is when we talk about specifically dance. But I'm glad you mentioned ballet as well. Is I often sort of talk to the boys about their role models, and I sort of lead the ballet for them because I know we're going to get to it in a minute. Yeah. And I always pull up. Is it Tom Holland? He's Spider-Man, isn't he?
Yes.
So I always put Tom Holland, and the boys are like, he's Spider-Man. I'm like, okay, what's he like? They're like, he's strong, he's fast, he's fearless. And then I pull up the videos of him and Billy Elliot.
Yeah.
And then and I'm like, how's he? Then they suddenly have that connection that two things can be true and real at the same time. And I think I had one of my year 6s came to me and he'd done his own research. I'm really lucky to work with boys who really run with stuff, which is great. I think he'd gone into sort of football techniques and rugby techniques, and how lots of people who play sort of top level sports have similar dance training because it's to do with balance and coordination. And it may not be ballet, it may not be, any other type of dance you have, but they have similar skill sets that they have to be taught to make them good at the things that they want to do. So it was always nice for the boys to have that connection.
I love that. I think, I don't know if I've got this right, but I think the Australian rugby team actually, I don't know if this is right, so don't quote me on it. There's some rugby team somewhere in the world that have to partake in ballet classes to help them and facilitate their strength and coordination, which is, if we're talking about, it's both physical, but if we're talking about something that is a bit more structured and streamlined, and then something that's more creative, it's crazy that they go hand in hand in my head.
No, it's fascinating. And I just think, even just bringing that to, children's attention, it's great for them to know that it is for everybody. If you want to be fast and strong, there's different ways of doing it if that's what you feel you want. But at the end of the day, you're still looking at really structured core, disciplines, practices. No, I love it.
I love that. I often found that I did ballet a bit when I was younger, but obviously I didn't carry on because of the gender stereotypes. And then when I was 16, I went to an amazing school called Joanne Haylock School of Dance, where I live. And when I was there, I actually found that I felt most masculine when I was doing that. Like when I was doing the ballet and I was leading a girl across the floor, or I was doing lots of really big jumps or jetés or anything. That's in that moment when I felt like at school maybe I'm not so masculine. I felt way more masculine doing that thing that people stereotype to be a feminine thing, which is really interesting. So we're going to move on now to a little game segment. I love a game segment on the Select podcast. It's great. This game segment is kind of like Dragon's Den style. I don't know if I can say that, copyright reasons. But I'm going to play the role of the very sceptical traditional board of governors, and I'm looking to cut the budget. I don't want arts in my schools anymore. I don't think it's important. It's a luxury, and I'm going to give you 60 seconds to try and convince me why it's important for that subject to be in the school and how it'll aid the other ones. How are you feeling? Feeling ready?
Yeah, I feel like I have to think really quickly. Does 60 seconds include thinking time and delivery?
No, you can think.
Okay, right.
You can think.
I'll manage. I'll make it work.
Your first one is art versus engineering. We think that art is just messy play. We don't understand why it's important. What would you say?
Art versus engineering. Okay, so art versus engineering. Do you want me to deliver it to you like as if you were the governors?
Yeah, go on. I'm the governors. I'm the governors.
Okay,
I'm feeling strict. I'm feeling very strict.
I think if it came to art versus engineering, I'd ask what is it you want from these children when they leave. And if we're looking at children who are real world ready, children who are ready for jobs that don't exist yet, you know, we're going to get them ready for engineering and systems that are going to be changed in the next 10, 20 years, that, you know, and that's when they would have finished university. What we really need to do is bring them all the way back to the basics of problem solving and spatial awareness. And by decreasing sort of the level of art in your school, and I'm thinking physical art here. By decreasing sort of what you do with art, you're taking away those problems with the children. You know, do they know what space they have to fill? Do they know what, you know, testing my art skills now. Do they know what negative space is? Do they know the idea of perception? You know, if they want to build different sort of skyscrapers or, you know, the next holiday destination, are the children aware of what shapes they need, you know, and how are those shapes going to inhibit sort of traffic flow and people management? And that's all something that they'll get through art.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely. Okay, we'll maybe include art in the program then. The next one is music versus maths. How is music really helping in schools? I don't understand why.
So I don't have to think long for this one.
Go on.
So there is a lot of educational research out there which shows a really clear correlation between mathematical ability and musical ability.
Okay.
So I would suggest, you know, if we're looking for children who you want to be, you know, the top math scorers in the country, bear in mind, just a slight plug for my boys here. They've made it to the absolute finals of the maths quiz in Oxford. So
oh, wow.
big shout out to them.
Oh, amazing. That deserves a round of applause.
Really happy for them. And, you know, if you want children to be winning those awards and, you know, go on to do further maths at A level, you need to give them the space for the musical ability, because you have lots of sort of notation in there that the children need to be able to do by sight. You're looking at patterns and pattern recognition, and that's a really big part of maths, especially if you're looking into experimental maths. You know, if you go into university, you want to be the children to be able to look for the patterns and, you know, performing in music, you know which notes go together and that what they mean. You know, if you're looking at scales, and you're more musical than me, David, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
there are certain notes that you can put together and some that you can't, depending on what type of story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, it affects it.
And that will affect, if you're looking at sort of even the basics of like times tables and factors, it's a similar thing, just shown in a different way. These numbers belong to these families.
Yeah.
These notes belong to these families.
And you mentioned about your rap, like you've literally seen a situation where they have put together music and maths.
Yeah, and I you know, it's really clear. But there's a lot of evidence out there, actually. I feel like you're my governess now, and I'm really trying to convince you. There's a lot of evidence.
There is.
There,
I promise. There's a lot of evidence. Amazing. So, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the episode, but I've absolutely loved having you on here. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
on.
Thank you for having me.
Before you go, I want you to tell me maybe one quality that you see in the boys that leave through the gates that haven't been formed from test scores, and they've been formed from being in a creative environment. What would you say that skill is, or quality?
Oh gosh, that's a tricky one. Obviously, we have so many boys who come through the doors. And sort of every year when they leave to go to year 6, that's always like the big one. I always think to myself, you know, what is it that we've done to help you, and how have we helped mold you into who you want to be? And depending on the child, it's always very different. But for me, the arts, and, you know, especially the children who go to select, you know, what they come out with is a real sense of confidence. And that doesn't always have to be big and loud and standing at the front. That's not always what confidence is. Confidence can also be sort of knowing that you can try, knowing who you are and what it is that you want to achieve, and knowing how to talk to other people. Confidence can be knowing to, you know, just get that journey a slightly different way when you're going to secondary school if there's an issue with the bus. Confidence can be so many different things, and it's really hard to measure. But for me, that doesn't come from test scores. You know, test scores can knock your confidence, but actually test scores aren't going to build them back up. You need a myriad of other things that are going to do that, and being able to work on your performance and your speaking skills and all those types of skill sets that we can't always do day to day when you're doing a test paper. That's what I feel, that benefits the boys the most.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. Confidence. What another word that came up in the previous episode as well. That was the big C. We called it.
But it should be,
Yeah.
like, especially nowadays when you're looking at sort of the mental health epidemic we've got going on with children, and sort of as we're going through school, that even the confidence just to go and ask somebody for help.
Yeah, that's it.
It's such a small thing, and I've always been a fairly confident person, so it's always hard for me to sort of take a step back and like, what can I do to get you to what I feel you can do, and that that's really, really important for me.
Amazing. Oh, Michael, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's been lovely to hear your insight. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Select podcast. Thank you to Michael.
No, thank you.
And if you do want to find us, you can find us on social media at the Select podcast and also at Select School of Performing Arts. You can also look at our website to book yourself in for a trial. And other than that, that's everything from me. Have a lovely rest of your night, your day, your evening, whenever you're listening. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Michael, it's so nice to have you on here. I'm so excited, as you can see. Did you have fun with our amazing podcast host, David?
I had a great time. It's the first time I've done anything like this, and it was just really interesting just to talk about everything that I really care about, but can't find somewhere else to talk to it. But it's not something I have to write down daily. So no, that was brilliant.
You've got a platform now. You might have to start
I'll
your
be
own
back
one.
again.
That's
You'll never get rid of me.
Michael the podcast.
Oh no, there'll be a very
Don't
short
give
run of
him
episodes.
any ideas. He'll be taking that to Netflix. Go for it.
So you guys knew each other before we had Select in Buckingham Prep?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
How did you meet?
Michael was one of my students. But
So I joined a dance school in Hillingdon. I think I mentioned it earlier when I was teaching, and I wanted just another skill set. So just to do where you're not telling people what to do. I wanted to learn something, a new skill. One of my friends invited me to go along, and we'd gone for a while, and then we had a new teacher come, and in walked Lauren, and it was, there was a real shift of energy in the room, and we all went to tap. Some people had tapped before. I'd never tapped before, then. So our teacher was really, really lovely, really great. We sort of learned lots of skills, and then when Lauren came, there was a real shift in everything, a positive shift. It's a real compliment. Okay. Where actually it became still a fun thing, but I think Lauren could see that we could all do a little bit more. And we're talking, there was a real range of people there.
She came and whipped you into shape.
No.
No, they were really good. Like you would say, "Oh, we're beginners," but they were doing like intermediate stuff.
It was a real range of people. We had people there who were nurses, people there who were working in law, teachers, administrators. There was such a range of people, and everyone had come from different walks of life. And sort of to go somewhere and sort of have someone tell you what you were good at and what you need to do to improve in a completely different context was fantastic. And we actually, I'm going to mention it because I talk about it all the time when people ask me. We entered a dance show
competition.
2019.
That's when Select started. Yeah.
It was, and we won first place.
Yeah,
our adult tap group won first place.
Do you remember the song?
It was.
Where's Lizanne? We need Lizanne.
Oh, Lizanne would know. It was. It was fussy, was it?
No, what's that? I can't think what it's called.
I remember this bit. I remember that.
Can you show us, please? Can you show us your bit?
Please, sadly, there's not. No, that's the only bit I can remember. No.
Something, tap. You can do it.
No, I can't. Absolutely cannot. I have to find a video. We can save that for the next episode of the podcast. So the next episode of the podcast, tune in. I will reignite the gang and we'll get our dance ready. But it was actually just having that and going to do something which we all felt so fun, and then suddenly have someone say, you guys. Then since then we've done dance shows. We've done.
What was your favourite number?
My favourite number. I don't know. I do know that my family would come to watch, and they'd always say to me, "Michael, your mouth moves the entire time." So
you're counting.
I'd be counting. I'd be like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a skill that I still need to work on. But no, it was great. And then Lauren did whip us all into a shape, but it was a shape that none of us could see. But Lauren could clearly see that we could be a certain way. And when I had to choose somebody to come and work with the boys, you know, we had an extra space for, you know, extra clubs and experiences with the boys. I think really strongly, my school is like my baby, you know, and everything I do reflects on me as a person, I feel. And I thought really long and hard about who can I trust, who's going to come in, you know, treat the boys the way that I would treat them, but also push them in a way that they need to be. And Lauren's name was top of my list. So yeah, so, you know, and they do, you know, I'm always grateful that you came. Because I know that we are quite a small school and there's lots of other places for you to be. So that's a thank you from me and probably from the boys and the parents as well. I'll talk on their behalf. So thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on here, and also thank you for giving us that platform to be able to come in and do all of our classes. And, you know, if you do want to do another adult tap class, maybe you could do that. You could lead it.
I'll be home practicing my number, ready to show you all. That's my plan.
That's great. The next step, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, done. Yeah, see you there.